Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's retro review is The City of Skulls for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition by TSR. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in 1993 under the TSR code WGR6, The City of Skulls is a 64-page softback scenario for levels 9 to 12 set in the world of Greyhawk by the late Carl Sargent. It was released at around the same time as Eyes the Evil and is a continuation of the events of the Greyhawk Wars that are detailed in the From the Ashes box set. Also, I'd like to thank my friend Mark for letting me borrow his copy for this review. Right, to the cover. Here we have an okay piece by Jeff Easley that feels a bit knocked together and doesn't really have much to do with the scenario. Okay, to the inside. It's interesting to note here that although the cover says The City of Skulls, the inside just says City of Skulls. Not sure why this is. There'll be spoilers from this point on, so stop watching now if you intend to play this. The book itself is detached from the cover and gives us a pretty basic map of the Raqqa and some quick monster statistics of the kinds of creatures that the players can meet here, although this is very basic and doesn't include any of the special powers that the likes of demons get. The City of Skulls is a scenario for 6 to 8 players of characters level 9 to 12. A total of around 70 to 75 levels are recommended. They are required to have good combat and magical ability, and it stresses that the focus here is intelligence and subtlety, not mere firepower. Deception and resourcefulness are more useful here than muscle. It recommends the DM use the From the Ashes box set, Eyes the Evil, the Marklands, and the Monstrous Compendium 8 Outer Planes Appendix. It also indicates strongly that the DM become familiar with the new game mechanic that is implemented here, Notoriety. We are also given a set of pre-generated characters should the DM want this to be a one-shot. It then goes on to preparing the adventure. It stresses that this scenario is not suitable for characters of evil alignment, as they would simply not be recruited, but also that good aligned characters would have real issues in the capital city of Ayaz's evil empire with priests and demons that have no alignment spells. A party composed of mostly neutrals would fare better. When it comes to character races, it stresses that demi-humans will stick out like a sore thumb, especially elves. Both alignment and race are covered by the Notoriety Mechanic. More on that later. We also have some discussion on one-shot magic items. The rationale behind the scenario is a swift strike into the Raqqa, which would leave no time for resting and recuperating, as this greatly reduces their chances of success. Therefore, the likes of potions, scrolls and charged items, such as rods, staffs and wands, are an absolute premium. It also goes on to talk about the power of charm spells, and how the DM should deal with groups that are over-reliant on them, and the inevitable issues that arise from them, such as being accompanied by charmed individuals, and the readiness of charmed PCs to be able to assist the players. Additionally, there is a section on magical disguise and how the DM should adjudicate these matters. It also talks about role-playing in the Raqqa. The scenario assumes that the players will perform a surgical strike and be in and out with ruthless efficiency, but as we know, events don't always go as planned, so it gives us hints on how to direct play should the adventurers decide to interact with the residents of the city as well as the significant NPCs. Then we move on to the new mechanic, Notoriety. The actions of the players will make them more and more notorious throughout the course of this scenario, and as a way of measuring this, there is a point system. The higher the score the players accrue, the worse things get for them. Hit squads will be sent out at various notoriety levels to deal with them. The higher the score, the more powerful and brutal the squad. Players can start off with notoriety points for simply having good aligned characters and demi-humans in the party, with paladins proving a particular nuisance as their protection from evil ability calls for attention in the Raqqa, and points to gain through various activities such as interacting with certain people, performing certain actions and killing certain creatures. The aim here is for their score to go up as slowly as possible. This can be achieved by things such as not leaving witnesses, using illusions, using charmed servants to do their work, etc. The more foolish and erratic the behaviour, the higher the amount of points that are gained. Notoriety checks are made at key points in the scenario by the DM rolling a d10 and adding their score to it, then referring to a table in the middle of the book which tells them who or what is sent to take them down. The penultimate team to be sent is the Boneheart, who are Ayaz's elite. If by some miracle the players defeat the Boneheart, then Ayaz himself will arrive 2 turns later with 2 Balors, 6 Glebrezu and 6 Nalfeshni in tow. It discusses how the DM can make notoriety visible to the players with things such as scrolls that they find on defeated squads, and also makes a point of saying how players can actually reduce their notoriety score. This can only really be done by persuading major NPCs that nothing is amiss. It also discusses how the DM should prepare for the unexpected, and also how to tactically script the NPCs to deal with combat. Also, it makes the important point of the role that time plays in this adventure and how it should be tracked. There's also an interesting note on potions of vitality and the role they play in making this easier for the players to deal with the tight time constraints upon them. Okay, next it moves on to the beginning of the scenario itself. The players are introduced to their role in a large narrative piece read to them by the DM. To sum it up, it is months after the Graoch War, and they are summoned to the palace of King Belvor IV of Chendel. Here they are introduced to various important nobles and defenders of the realm, including Master Elementalist Karzalin and Gareth Heldenstar, the High Priest of Heronius. Here they are told of an important quest that the king asked them to perform: to enter Daraka, the capital city of Ayos, and rescue Earl Holmer of Walworth from the dungeons there. If successful, their reward will be 3,000 gold pieces each and the title of Knight Protector of Fiondi, with all the privileges that brings. Karzalin provides an abundance of one-shot and charged items for them to use should they accept. He also explains the difficulties in getting to the City of Skulls, as planar structures are distorted within 30 miles of the city, due to there being a gate to the abyss there which renders such travel dangerously unpredictable, explaining that they would need to plane shift nearby and travel by cover of darkness overland to get there. Should the players fail, death or a lifetime in Ayos' dungeons awaits them. It then goes on to clarify a few things, such as the accuracy of the information that Earl Homer is where they think he is, and then, should the players accept the mission, it goes on to how they will get into Daraka. They're given a map which has a sewer layout that is entered under a jetty on the Oppicum River, and they are also given a fairly generous list of magic items, which are mostly single use but do contain some decent permanent ones. Karzalin gives the players some good advice on how to approach this, with some guidance on which spells to take and how to use them. We then go into information that the players should receive should they dig deeper into Holmer and why the king wants him rescued. As it happens, Belvor has no love for Holmer, holding him culpable for the fall of the Shieldlands during the war, and would rather the Countess Katarina of Walworth remains as leader of the exiled Shieldlanders, as she is so good at it. Belvor surmises that Holmer has already been broken by Ayos, and is in all probability a shell of the man he once was. He simply sees it as a way of boosting morale for both his own people and the Shieldlanders, and also as a way of taking the heat off himself by various factions to start war anew. This is all detailed in the Markland sourcebook. In addition to this, Belvor is a good man who ultimately feels sympathy for Holmer. Should the players dig too deep, they gain a notoriety point before they even set foot on Daraka due to Ayos' spies finding out about interesting questions being asked. As final preparations for the adventure, it gives information on the players gaining additional one-shot magical items. Karzalin can assist with this. It then goes into the changes around magic use in this scenario. As previously mentioned, planar travel is highly dangerous near Daraka, but the range of this is 20 miles, not 30 as Karzalin has said. Also, teleporting by any means is similarly dangerous, as they can end up in the abyss. Divination spells cannot locate Holmer, and the use of contact with the plane and commune are strongly discouraged and will gain them notoriety points. Conjuration and summoning spells that summon monsters can accidentally summon demons instead of what was desired, which are automatically hostile, and turning undead is more difficult than normal. Praying for spells instantly gains notoriety points too. Of course, the players won't initially know this, so it may come as a surprise. After this, it moves on to the next section, getting into jail. This details the player's arrival in the land of Ayos. It states that the players need 2 plane shift spells, one to get to the plane they're travelling through to get there, and one to get back to the prime material plane, saying that the safest places to traverse are the astral, ethereal and shadow planes, and also indicates that a not too harsh encounter would set the scene for these planes. If they take Karzalin's advice, they should shift back to the prime material due west of Daraka. If they insist on getting close or even on the Road of Skulls, then life will be much more difficult for them, with things like orc patrols every mile along the road, and the magical skulls that pepper here, gaining notoriety points along the way. It details their crossing of the 20 miles to get to Daraka, and gives an orc patrol with a priest of Ayos that the players can encounter. They are not initially hostile, and the players can bluff their way around it, although it does detail what happens should the players fight. Eventually, the players should arrive outside Daraka and infiltrate the wharf area. It gives us a rough map of the area and details the militia building along with those that are stationed there. Those players that want to move around easily can use charm person and NPCs here, and it gives details of Customs Commander Shendon Kerdek, who is little more than an arrogant bully. Ultimately, the players should find the sewer outflow pipe, although a disguised Alu fiend who is hanging around the shoreline called Kenshizi spots them. She is shape-changed into a human form and has the ability to detect invisibility. She will approach the players and try to charm them and use suggestion to interrogate them. She will plead with the players to accompany her to find her lover Randrith, who has been hunted by the militia. In actuality, she is waiting for a Cambion companion to arrive, and this could lead to a fight in the sewers. After this, it details the sewers. As you may expect, it has dead bodies that are diseased and wandering monsters, as well as the easily expected encounter with 2 Neo-Otyughs that are lurking in a cloud of fetid gas. Eventually, the players should find the entrance to the Halls of Wretchedness. Now, the best way of describing events here is to discuss what we have. Players enter into the uppermost jails that hold the pettiest of criminals, thieves and other miscreants. They need to get themselves through these upper levels without drawing attention to themselves. These levels do of course contain all manner of trouble. The top level is patrolled by orc and orc jailers with the occasional priest of Ayos and some ogres. The goal of the first level is to engage with a priest of Ios called Kalenzen, who's been assigned here as a punishment by High Priest Althea. He hates it here but carries out his duties as a record keeper with zeal. That gives 2 pieces of information that he knows, and he's ultimately the key to descending to level 2. Strangely, the reference section is in the middle of the book, and it includes all of the pre-generated characters who've clearly been designed with this scenario in mind, and we have some maps and a handout, as well as a notoriety record chart, and it gives us some details of what we should expect from the hit squads as the notoriety score rises. After this, it details the halls of torment, the mid-level jail. This place holds those on death row, those sentenced to specific tortures, and those who are being driven insane on purpose. Some unpleasant things can happen to the player should they do too much exploring here. It gives details of Mordlock the Executioner, a powerful priest of Ios who is a homicidal madman. If he is interrogated, it is possible that he can give the players the general layout of the level, as well as telling them about Zensha and Shalanda. Zensha is a mutant Cambion Marquis and is the key to the level below. He deals with a Hezru demon called Palmardek, who rules the lower level and is beholden to the Blood Bailiff. More on him later. Shalanda is Zensha's succubus consort. As they progress through this level, they discover that they are unable to get to the lower level where Holman is being held, and that they need to leave the dungeons and journey to the Boneheart Citadel itself and obtain the password from the Blood Bailiff. It details the journey to the Boneheart Citadel and gives some ideas on how the players can get in there. It lists some encounters, including a drow extortionist who threatens to blow up their whole operation if they don't pay him. It gives us details on getting access to the Citadel and entering, listing a number of possible methods they can use. It's a place that's heavily guarded by Orogs, Orcs, Wizards and Priests of Ios, and their aim here is to find the Blood Bailiff, Kazarine. A powerful and evil fighter, Kazarine will not give up the password to get to the lower levels easily, and getting it from him without attracting attention and getting out is a fairly hefty challenge in itself, and the players should probably not explore this area as their chances of getting found out are fairly high. With the password in hand, they need to get back and to the lower level. The Court of the Hezru is the deepest jail that is shrouded in illusion and is deadly. The goal here is to find Holmer, free him and get out. It is ruled by the Hezru Palmardek, who delights in breaking the will of those that are sent to its chambers. The prisoners that are kept here are mostly shells of their former self, and Palmardek stays here out of enjoyment, not duty. There are various traps throughout the level that the players need to be careful to avoid, and they can even encounter Meruach, an evil illusionist apprentice to the infamous Boneheart illusionist Jumper. The players can also end up in the court of the Hezru and face Palmardek on his throne should they be particularly unlucky or suicidal. Sooner or later the players should find Holmer and get out. It details the players being pursued through the sewers, and should they escape, their pursuit overland by an Orc warband and the Legion of Black Death, Ios' elite troops. Once out of the boundary of Daraka, they have their final plane shift away from this hellhole and back to civilization. The final part of the adventure is called A Glorious Return, as a question. It details what happens when the players arrive back with Holman in tow. His mind is clearly shattered, with years of malnutrition and torture having taken a toll on him. It is what Belvoir has achieved politically that is of importance. He has scored a public relations triumph, with Holmer's freedom being spread throughout the lands. It also maintains the status quo, as the more aggressive factions in Friandi will be placated for now. The players may come to realise that their escapades were not as important as was sold to them. It gives us some consequences of the jailbreak and finally, some XP awards. The City of Skulls is an odd scenario. A specific skill set and type of player is required to succeed in it, and the chances are it won't be your actual group that will be that type. I feel that it would work better in a Rogue One manner, and aside from the main story that explains events that the players may see unfold, but from a different point of view. The book itself is fairly naff, and has all of the hallmarks of TSR at that period in time, with not even the title on the cover of the book matching the inside title. It has the look and feel of something that no budget was spent on. The maps and handouts are poor, the paper feels cheap, and you do get the feeling that it's a bit of a by-the-numbers scenario to showcase the world of Greyhawk setting without having to spend too much. The art ranges from fairly poor to decent throughout, and the strange placement of the reference section slap bang in the middle of the scenario shows that little care was taken. You may have noticed that I skimmed the main section of the scenario to give you an overview of events rather than the detail I would usually go into. This is because the scenario was fairly confusing, and a few times I was bewildered as to what was going on. There are few character portraits, and those that are there are not labelled, so eventually all of the NPCs blurred into one evil mess of neurosis and hatred. Each NPC has a list of grudges, fears and goals that concern all of the other NPCs in the scenario, and as it's a high-ish level scenario, the DM has that to contend with as well as the ecology of the dungeon itself, and quite frankly, players don't have the time to take to discover these particular nuances. As a scenario that I imagine was designed to showcase Daraka itself, it pretty much falls flat on its face. Nothing contained is given any character, and it feels like just another city, albeit one populated with all manner of foulness. In fact, the only part where anything is brought to life is the pre and after parts in Chendel. My preference would have been a box set on all of Ios, as I explained in my Ios the Evil review, as Daraka has the air of being like little else in the D&D multiverse. I imagine that with some more caring modern production values, art and writing, the Lands of Ayers would be inspiring. As with lots of this kind of AD&D from this period, it goes for silly prices on all the usual places, and to be honest, it's really not worth it. It is available fairly cheaply, however, as a PDF if you want to check it out yourself. The City of Skulls was by no means Carl Sargent's finest hour, but as he was one of the writers of The Enemy Within as well as the writer of Night Below, I have the feeling that it was less a reflection of his pedigree and more one of how TSR was being managed at this time. It's more of a curiosity than anything you would want to run these days, as it's a fairly uninspired affair. I give The City of Skulls a 4 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I've put some links below. Lastly, if you enjoy what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.